Wife of 12 years, lover of 20, had an affair. I am crushed beyond words. I 41M found out last Saturday night 4 days ago as of this posting that my wife 40F has been having an affair for the past several months with a man from her gym. I had my suspicions for weeks, months, but I kept convincing myself I was being irrational, and that she, of all people, could never do something like that to me. I looked at her phone after she was asleep. Invasion of privacy, I know, but it was justified, and I saw ironclad, photographic proof that my worst nightmare had come true. My heart is shattered into a million pieces. I confronted her and we have been talking about it, what to do next, ever since. There have been rivers of tears, from both of us, but surprisingly, no anger, no rage. I don't know if that just means I have not yet arrived at that stage of grief yet. I hope that's not the case, or if it just means that I love her so much that her betrayal makes me sad, not mad. Please do not knee-jerk reaction to this and call her a W or tell me to kick her to the curb, etc. I need positivity right now, not more negativity. I still love her, deeply. Even the most egregious of sins can't undo 20 years of true love. I'm committed to try my best to work this out with her and hopefully, in time, learn to trust her again, forgive, and reconcile. Partly because I want our two daughters 6 and 9 to grow up in a loving home with two parents that are an example of how to be a good couple, recent transgressions notwithstanding. I'm not sure I'll ever tell them about this. But more importantly, I want to reconcile because I don't believe in holding grudges. I don't believe in throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I do believe in second chances, and I definitely believe that with the exception of this infidelity, she is the best thing that has ever happened to me. I want this to be a very dark chapter in our story, not the end. She has since contacted him and ended their relationship, and he agreed to attend a different gym glass timeslot midday. Gracious, for a human piece of garbage, while my wife attends at 6 a.m. still. So at least there is some closure there. We have been talking ad nauseum about why she strayed. While it was 100% her choice to betray me and hurt me in such an unimaginable way, nothing happens in a vacuum. After some deep reflection, I realized that over the years I have been taking her for granted. I love yous were few and far between. Time had become predictable, scheduled, and robotic, though she shares half the blame for that. After lengthy discussions, and a lot of ugly crying, we also determined that somewhere along the way of having kids, the flame of passion had gone out. We were friends, and co-parents, still loved each other, but we didn't show it well. We got complacent. We have been talking and talking, well, texting, actually, since was out of town moan wed this week, bad timing for a work trip, and are trying to navigate this and eventually begin the rebuilding process. Eventual forgiveness will happen, time heals all wounds, but trusting her again will be the hard part. She swears up and down she will never let it happen again, but yeah, that's what they all say. Some would say once a cheater, always a cheater. She's actually said that many times herself in the past, and that doing something bad keeps getting easier with each offense. The counterpoint to that is that the first time you do something, you may know what the consequences would be, the guilt, knowing how much it would crush me, but until you actually feel and experience those consequences, you don't really understand them. Some people return to a life of crime after getting out of prison, and some people get their essay together and go straight. I want to believe that my wife is of the latter. I'm using a throwaway account and remaining anonymous for a number of reasons. Firstly, I'm embarrassed. I know I'm victim blaming myself, but I can't help but feel like the beta male that was bested by the alpha. I've been cuckolded and it feels horrible. I don't want everyone to know this. I'm trying to find the glimmer of hope in all things right now, and all I can say to this is that she remains with me, and the alpha is alone now. Another reason not telling anyone IRL about this right now is that if when we do reconcile, I don't want everyone she knows to hate her. This would not be productive for living a healthy life for either of us. Family gatherings would all be dysfunctional, and she would not feel comfortable in her own skin living in our neighborhood among people who think she is scum. The only one who needs to bear the burden of judging and forgiving her is me. And well, partially you now, because of this post. Sorry about that. If I ever decide to tell people about this, it won't be until this is all a distant, horrible memory. Anyways, Please try to stay positive here. Negativity begets negativity. She's not a W or, she's not a S-ut. She's the mother of my children, the love of my life, and my best friend. She made a horrible, horrible choice, and we will deal with the fallout in the best way we can, and I hope beyond hope that in a month, a year, 5, 10, we can look back on this as a low point and that we crawled out of the depths of hell together. What doesn't kill us, only makes us stronger. Thank you for sharing this burden with me. I just needed someone other than her to share my feelings with. Redditor's reaction story 2 after. Redditor 1, all the reasons you say she cheated are just excuses. The real reason she cheated is because she wanted to. She is only sorry she got caught. She didn't confess, you had to catch her. She needs to change gyms altogether. Absolutely no contact. How do you know he actually agreed to different gym times? He can just show up anytime he wants really. Redditor follow up. This op sounds intelligent, but I believe there's a bit of naivety in the once a cheater always a cheater statement in regards to consequences. Although in theory it makes sense, it doesn't change the fact that even the consequences of her actions before it actually happened should have alone been enough to opt out, or not do it at all. Cheating is a series of decisions made and acted upon, regardless of what could happen. What op fails to consider is that it was worth the risk to her. Period. 20 years, thrown away on an affair despite not actually having lived through the consequences is still a risk she believed worth taking for a piece of ass. If the affair partner is garbage, ask yourself why and not your wife? At least he's single, as far as you know. Redditor 2, what is your wife ready to do to salvage the relationship? What are the consequences she will face? The fact that she's not changing gyms is already a red flag. The AP could come one day at 6 a.m. Is she committing to therapy? Have you planned your and hers STD test? You will need a support network and an outlet. Get into therapy as well. Op answer, she has said she would do anything for a second chance. She offered to quit the gym. I may still take her up on that offer. I don't know how she could prove what she said to him on the phone. This is all so fresh. I think I will follow up and make sure she has not been texting him. I honestly don't think she would after this. I know what your response to that will be, and all I'll say is that I've known her for 20 years, and I can tell when something is up. I was choosing to ignore all of the red flags the past few months, simply because I didn't want to be that guy jealous husband. She also said she'd do counseling. She offered me to look at her phone at any time, put a tracker on her car, turn on location tracking on her phone. All her ideas. At this point I'm not interested in tracking her like a child, so I declined them. Things may change. IDK. She was planning a doctor visit soon for a lingering cold sore throat, and a mammogram, so I think I will bring up that is like get STD tested, and a pregnancy test, though she just had her period last week so I think I'm safe there. Redditor 3, want assistance? Here it is. 1. Make her sign a postnup 100% your favor 2. You make her go see a therapist 3. She has to tell your family and hers what she did. She needs to feel the humiliation that you feel for her to understand how badly she messed up for. Make her write a timeline. 5. Make it clear any contact with him or any guy will lead to immediate divorce. 66. If you own a home and her name is on it, make her take her name of it. She needs to understand if this happens again she will move her and she will for it. Redditor follow up. 7. Insist on a paternity test for your kids. This will show her how badly she has broken your trust and tainted all that you love about your family. Also, it will be a consequence for her because of the ignominy of having to perform the test. ETA, it doesn't matter if you are convinced they are your kids or that the result of the test doesn't matter. It's the very taking of the test that is the consequence. Story 2. My mother cheated on my father around the time I was born. 22M. I recently found out my mother cheated on my father around the time I was born. I'm now 22M. My mother and father migrated to a new country, and was involved in a church when they first arrived. The pastor of the church was a leader and figurehead of the community, and got involved with my parents on the outside. It was a pastoral gesture to help a young family get settled into a new country and community. On the inside, this pastor was the man who my mother later went on to have an affair with. I found out only recently, in the last few months, from my father. This was when my mother was hospitalized for a serious health condition. She is better now, and the subject came up about my older brother 2 years older than me briefly remembering an older man physically assaulting my mother, leading her to bleed from her nose. Long story short, there were witnesses, cops were called, my dad found out that the pastor was doing more than helping out, and he eventually went to court for assault, and that was the end of that. Prior to my dad discovering the physical abuse, he had reason to believe there was more than what met the eye. The pastor would be over their house on occasion, with the three of them plus me and my older brother who were both less than 2 or 3 years old, and my mother and him would at times share an inside joke, seemingly making my dad out to be the BTT of the joke. I can imagine my dad was incredibly hurt by this, but the reasoning was that he was just a pastor helping out, so it was fine, right? Long story short, this man became a bit too intimate with my mother, leading my dad's dad, my granddad, to even question the nature of the relationship between them, in a private conversation he had with my dad. Apparently, on occasion, the pastor had also made a comment about how I was his son, and not my dad's. After my dad told me this a few months ago, I questioned whether he was my biological father. He said he thought so, but never checked with a DNA paternity test, and that even if I wasn't, it wouldn't matter after all these years. He said he was angry at the time, but moved on, and forgot about it, as it was so many years ago. My parents went on to have 2 more children, my younger siblings, 12 and 16, and have been together ever since. I am usually closer to my mother than my father, since she raised us, while dad was working 2 jobs and studying to feed the family. I had to wait till she got better from her medical condition before I could bring this up again, and now is the time. Though I love my mother, I do feel like she betrayed my dad, even though this was 20 years ago, and I've only just found out about it. I don't think she knows that I know. I feel like I should either talk this out with her, and my dad too, or I can just forget about it and move on. However, the paternity issue kind of bothers me, and I want to know for sure what happened. I'm not sure if I can really forget about it completely and move on. I want to hear it from my mother herself. I am, however, mindful that my mother's health is frail and that an extra intense emotional burdens from having this resurface could worsen her condition. I'm also wondering where my younger siblings would come in, as well, and if they should ever know about this in the future. What do you guys suggest? Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, I think you have to get DNA test. What you do with info is the story. It will just eat you upside if you don't get it. Plus, if you need info for Heath reasons, at minimum you have contacts if pastor is your father. Redditor follow up. Yeah, take the test before talking to your mother. No point in having 2 difficult conversations when you could just have one. Either way, if it were me, I'd bring it up with mom when you're ready. Redditor 2, talk to your mother. Both your parents will have known that this day was coming for a very long time. They have been dreading it, but will likely have had discussions about it. Your dad, that's right, dad, the man that chose you on the day he found out and every day afterwards, has known about the biological possibilities since around the time of your birth. Mum will know at least how he will react. What he's told you and what he's told her may be different. Don't ask her if you should test for paternity. Tell her that you are going to do it. Answer, how would you bring this topic up? I want to be straight with her to hear her side of the story, get down to the facts and forgive her for what she did to my dad. She is my mother and she did raise me, and I love her, but this is something for my own peace of mind, especially the paternity part. Redditor 3, you're worried about your mother? Please, she certainly wasn't worried about your father, nor her family. Talk to her. You deserve the truth, and she can deal with the consequences. It was her activities that have cast a shadow.